Just why is the far right doing so well in Portugal, and is it part of a European trend? I'm pleased now to welcome to the programme to try and answer those questions Dr. Marta Lorimer. She's a fellow in European politics at the European Institute at LSE in London. She joins us from there. Good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, thank you for inviting me.
The rise of this party, the Chega party in Portugal, is quite remarkable, isn't it? It didn't exist 5 years ago. It went from 12 seats in the last election to 48 seats today. How do you explain its success?
So this is really quite surprising, in fact, because Chega is, as you mentioned, a new party. And until recently, Portugal was one of the few European countries that did not have a successful far-right party. The causes for its success are multiple, but in this specific case, a lot of it had to do with corruption scandals that touched the other political parties, and with the leader's persona, who's a fairly respectable former centre-right politician and quite well known across the country.
Is it fair to say that what we're seeing in Portugal now is part of a broader drift to the far right in much of Europe?
Yes, so far-right parties have been rising fairly steadily across the European continent since the early 90s. And they are becoming increasingly present in countries that previously did not have them. So Portugal is a case, Spain is another case of a country that previously didn't have a far-right party. So they do certainly seem to be on the rise.
And why is that? Why are far-right ideas gaining traction now, in your view?
There's a variety of reasons. Some of the usual suspects are backlash against globalization, backlash against migration, but more and more it seems that a lot of this has to do with the progressive normalization of far-right parties. So these political parties that were once looked at as essentially completely outside the realm of respectable politics have become more and more common, and other political parties have started normalizing them by copying their ideas.
What's your sense then of how this may play out in June when the European elections are to take place?
We already know that in the European elections, these political parties are going to do very well. And it could change the balances within the European Parliament, because the European Conservative and Reformists, were led by Giorgia Meloni, so Italy's prime minister, are set to become the kingmakers in the European Parliament. So how much influence they actually have will depend on how the other centrist political parties behave. But it looks likely that they might become increasingly relevant in the European Parliament.
And you talked about the fact that the far right has been normalised in much of Europe now. What should these more mainstream centrist parties be doing now to correct that?
Quite simple. They should stop copying their ideas, because what they're doing every time that they essentially copy the policy prescriptions of the far right is giving them traction and suggesting that these are credible policy solutions, while we know that not to be the case.
We are out of time, but there's many more questions I'd like to ask you, but thank you very much indeed. Dr. Marta Lorimer talking to us there from LSE in London.
Thank you.